us from London. Ciara, I think you need to unmute your microphone if you can find that there. Yeah, welcome. Hi. So I know that you traveled with Leonard extensively in 2012 and did a lot of organizing for him. And I know how fantastic and fun you are as a person and breath worker. But I really, honestly, I don't know that much else about you, and I haven't really gotten to connect with you and talk about physical immortality and how you came into all of this. So if you want to just speak a little bit to your personal experience with physical immortality and Leonard.
Yeah, so it was 2012, and I was in between jobs, and I went to Glastonbury, and I'd been doing a lot of shamanic work at the time. And I asked my guides, what's the purpose of me being here right now? And they went, you have to learn to breathe. And I'm you've got to learn to breathe? What? Anyway, I'm like, yeah, what a load of shit. Anyway, so they have this thing called the Glastonbury Oracle, which is a free newspaper of courses and what's going on in the area. And there's Sandra Ray, Liberation Breathing. Oh, okay. So that was my introduction to breathwork, and then I got introduced to Leonard. My first training was in India, so it was absolutely phenomenal with Rajendra and Hiker, and and I just loved Leonard. He's this like triple Scorpio intense, with all these really amazing concepts, because he didn't just introduce the breath. He really wanted to change humanity and help humanity grow. And he had all these forward-thinking ideas about politics, about money, about government, and how we could live in a civil society, which, we're not. We have our overlords. And no other breathwork teacher out there teaches this, apart from his graduates that also use it. And none of them, they're all about the breath. But actually, he saw the greater picture of how the world, you can't just have the breath. You've got to change your life. So being in India, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And so he invited me. After going to Virginia and checking out the centre, he said to me, so I'm going to India and then Australia next year. You want to come with me? And I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, because I love travel. And my dad lives in Australia, so went to India for 6 months. And the very first day that we were in Rishikesh, you were there, Heike, weren't you, in Rishikesh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was with Elvie, his wife, and we went to an ATM to get the money out. And I got my card out and put the card in, and it took it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the beginning of 6 months away, and it's taken a card. What am I going to do? So we walk out of the ATM. It's a Sunday, can't do anything on a Sunday. And this old Baba and a young boy comes up to us, and he said, can you give me some money for puja? And I'm like, oh, my card's just been taken, but I do have some rupees. I know it's important for you to do the evening puja by the Ganges. So he said, no, don't give me the money. We'll go to the shop and you'll buy it for me. And so I bought that, and Elvie bought it for the little boy. I went back to the ashram we were staying at, and I was a roommate with Chitra. And I'm telling her this story of like, oh, what am I going to do? And I said, look in my purse, it's not here. And there it was, in my purse. And Elvie is my witness that card did not come back out of the machine. And so that was a massive leela. And so I'm like, bloody hell. I mean, hanging out with Leonard was really cool. So then we went on to Sariska National Park, which is, the ashram there is the home of Bhartriji, who's a 2,000-year-old immortal. And we did a 9-day training there, it was a really great experience. And then we went to the ashram to do arti. And Bhatriji has had many bodies, like Babaji, and each of the bodies is encased in a cement tomb. And you go up to the first one, and the energy is like phenomenal, and you feel it vibrating as you're coming. And so after Arti, we went outside, and I was in a Jeep with Leonard was sitting next to me, looking off the other direction, and Nicole and her partner were sitting behind me. And there's this man by the side of the car, dressed in, the orange. Normally it's an orange robe, but this was like fawn coloured. And I'm like, that's a bit strange, isn't it? And his irises, one was brown, and the other was like a clear quartz crystal, the iris. And I'm like looking at his eyes going, wow, that's weird. And it was just absolutely, you were entranced looking at him. And I don't know how much time went by. And I couldn't help it, because in my head's going, is this Bhartriji? And I turned around to Nicole and her partner and said, is that Bhartriji? And they're like, looked back around, and he'd gone. And there was nowhere he could have gone to. He was, disappeared. And I'm like, I'm a scientist. You have to prove things to me for me to believe it. And I love it, because my logical mind just couldn't work it out. And it's like that real surrender. And if anything you learn from Leonard, it is complete surrender. And so this was my initiation into actually these immortal yogis.
Not a bad initiation.
Yeah.
It's pretty exciting. I think you just hit on the core of it. And for me, I can't speak about physical immortality, unless it lived for me, unless it was so much more than a concept. And I think that's what Leonard really pioneered for all of us, is that, he says he met 8 immortals, maybe more, before the end. And I mean, that's available to us. He was always pushing us as students to go out and find these, explore this, have your mind opened to this, because once you start looking, it all comes rushing to you. And that's just a beautiful demonstration of that. And I know without those experiences that are so personal to each of us, it really has to live for you. And at some point it will, if it doesn't now, at some point it will, if you pursue.
And I think the important thing is, whether you believe it or not, the practices are so incredibly essential,
And the practices with the elements, for people who don't know, Leonard's simple practices of earth, air, water, and fire, and spiritual community. And
because the day before this happened was a fasting day, and I spent the whole day with the fire chanting to Bhatriji.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So, Leonard's trainings were absolutely phenomenal. If you let it. If you wanted to stay in the drama, you'd have a horrendous time.
It's all available.
Project onto everybody else, then you're going to have a shit time. But if you surrender, you amazing.
Yeah. Ciara, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So I think